Hello.
Hello, Amy Lillard.
Hello, Julie Daman. It's live at 5 on a Wednesday, which is very strange. We usually do this on the Thursdays.
I know it's not Thursday, but schedules
Yeah.
be what they may. We thought it was important to get out to the community some breaking news, so here we are on a Wednesday.
I mean, like literally so much breaking news. People better like sit back and like get comfortable because there's a lot to talk about today.
There is.
Okay, should I jump in?
Jump in, dive in, get us started.
Getting started. All right, I'm pulling up my notes. So the board of directors met recently and they approved a bunch of things, a bunch of new things that we're going to talk about today. The one of them that we're going to start with is the enhanced incentive for telling the story of a historically underrepresented community. So again, an enhanced incentive is you can get a little bit more of incentive dollars if you qualify for that enhancement. What's interesting about this particular version of the enhanced incentive, and in contrast to the rural incentive specifically, is that there wasn't a ton of guidance in the statute or in the law about how to implement it. So, it's literally like the first of its kind in the country. So there was no like something to turn to and say, oh, we'll just save as and do this in Washington. But because it's been the first of its kind in the country, we had to do a lot of really important work, some of which, and first and foremost, it was really about defining what the law says. And I will put this out there. In the law, the language that is used is marginalized communities, an enhanced incentive for telling the story of marginalized communities. However, we know from our work in community that that's not the preferred phrase. And so from here on out, we will use historically underrepresented communities. So with that, defining that particular phrase is so important to our work because not only is it this enhanced incentive, but it is also driving our workforce development work, as well as the recruiting practices for our equity committee as well, and a lot of the work that we are doing within the Filmworks family. So with that, where am I going to go from here? Okay, I know where I'm going to go. Is it my turn still?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, so what's interesting and very different than the rural enhanced incentive is that if you're trying to determine if something is telling the story of, it is inherently a subjective decision, right? So you have to interpret a script, a story outline, things like that. So in designing this enhanced incentive, our goal was to always build a process that sets the applicant up for success. We really do want to embrace these stories and help people tell these stories. And so we designed this process so that it is, we're setting people up for success. That's what we're trying to do here. With that, to qualify for the enhanced incentive, for both the small budget production initiative and the standard program, you must absolutely hit those spending thresholds for the program. So for that, that's $150,000 for commercials, $300,000 per episode for episodic series, and $500,000 for feature films. So, Julie.
Yes.
You want to go in from there?
I would love to. So if a project hits those spending thresholds and a project thinks that their project tells the story of an underrepresented community, the first thing they're going to need to do is check a box. It sounds so, but they're going to have to check a box on the application form telling us that that is in fact the case, that they think that their project tells the story of an underrepresented group. If they check that box, then they'll then be prompted to answer two questions. One is to provide a brief description of the community that's featured in their project and how it meets our definition of underrepresented. And then secondarily, they need to answer the question of how the experience of that underrepresented group is portrayed in their project. Mm-hmm. So what is the underrepresented group and what is that story? So once the applicant has done that, it now triggers part of a review process internally at Washington Filmworks. And we've received the feedback from the community, as you know, you've been out there, that it's really important who the folks are who are evaluating these stories and making sure that when someone has applied for this enhancement, someone is reading it that has a very lived experience. So in this inaugural year, we're going to recruit 6 individuals from diverse backgrounds and different experiences to be our readers. We're going to assign 3 to each application that indicates that it's telling the story of an underrepresented group. And then those readers are going to read the script and they're going to make a recommendation to our board of directors when the board is evaluating a project for funding assistance. So where are we going to find these readers? It's really important, right? Again, I think it's important that they come from different places. Maybe they're a script reader, maybe they're an agent or a director. They could even be a film program or a university professor. Those are just some examples. But they're going to need to have a deep understanding of motion picture storytelling, regardless of their background. So we're working on that recruitment now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to keep going.
I just have to tell you that I was on the wrong notes, which is why I had the wrong notes up, but now I'm all with you, Julie. I'm with you.
You were doing great. You were doing fabulous.
So funny. I was like, oh.
See, they can see how well rehearsed. We actually lived this and we try to practice, but here we go. Thank you for being on this journey with us all. Mm-hmm. So the other breaking news is the thing that I'm sure everyone really tuned into this in development for, which is that the board approved the guidelines and criteria for the program. I joke, but in all seriousness, it's a very important document. As a reminder to anyone who hasn't read the 34-page guidelines and criteria in the past, it's the document that really outlines the requirements, the application process, what's eligible, what isn't eligible for funding assistance. And ultimately, that document becomes part of the legally binding agreement of an approved project. So it's not flashy, but it's really necessary. And I encourage everyone to read them once they're up on our site, which they're in the process right now of some things. So what you look for is they'll be redesigned and hopefully to be more filmmaker friendly, because it is a lot of words and we want it to make it easy to navigate as possible. Those guidelines and criteria are going to include all of the details around the enhanced incentive, both for rural and for telling the story of underrepresented groups. And then the new aspect is we haven't had a commercial project come through our incentive program in a very long time. So we have included a little thing in our new program where commercials will be eligible if they qualify for the rural enhancement. We want some of those commercials to go film our beautiful rural jurisdictions. So that's in there as well. Mm-hmm. In addition to the standard guidelines and criteria, the board also approved the small budget production guidelines and criteria. And Amy, now that you're on the right notes, would you like to speak to those?
Now that I know where I am and what I'm doing, yes, I'd be delighted to speak to. So again, these guidelines and criteria are super important. It has all the nuts and bolts about each of our programs in it. And the board approved them. Not only did they approve the guidelines and criteria for these, 2 programs, the standard and the small budget production initiative, but they also approved the updated language for the application. So you can see how we are inching towards opening that application window, right? We're going to talk a little bit about that at the end, but I want to talk about the small budget production initiative. Again, for those of you that are tuning in that might not know, this is our new program to support emerging Washington filmmakers making projects between $20,000 and $1 million. They must be creatively driven by the people who live right here in Washington. You have to have 2 of the following 4 positions as Washington residents. That would be writer, director, producer, and lead actor. So 2 of those positions have to be Washington residents. However, we have updated we've created the guidelines because this program didn't exist before last year. And so a couple of things to note in those guidelines and criteria. One is it can be any kind of motion picture content. So that's exciting for those of you that are playing in the XR space. Those are great for like documentary filmmakers. We really tried to, we heard you, community, and we really wanted to open this up so that more people had access to funds. While we always encourage folks to pay health and retirement benefits as part of their production, in this particular program, it is not a requirement as it is in the standard program. So if you're budgeting and you're thinking about, what your budget looks like for that small budget production, then, gosh, lots of questions here today on the chat,
Yeah.
Which we will also talk about. So again, we always want you to, do your best to provide those health and retirement benefits, but it is not a requirement of this small budget production. The other thing that you're going to see in this particular guidelines and criteria, which I'm sure you're going to read every single word of, is that this is the program where Washington Filmworks can be first money in, which means if you don't have any money raised, we can still conditionally approve your production as you continue to fundraise. And the fun thing for us is then you're part of the Filmworks family, and we can do things like write letters of support and like help you with your fundraising efforts and all of those things. So with that, if you come in to this program with not having raised all of your funds, then you can get a conditional funding letter of intent. And until you are fully financed, it will be conditional. We're still holding it in reserve for you. But when you finally get funded for your entire budget, it will be exchanged for what is called the certified funding letter of intent. And then you'll get a legally binding agreement from us and blah, blah, blah. So the other big change in this program as compared to the standard program is that there's only one completion package. That's all those documents you have to submit as part of the requirements at the Department of Commerce to report on all of our successes. And then, and this will hint at how close we are, community. Our intention is the board of directors review applications for the small budget production initiative. That was a mouthful, at the June board meeting. You're seeing we're very close. With that, do we know, and we're seeing it in the chat, I don't know, Julie, if you've been monitoring it that close, but we want to make you aware that there's lots of things going on. There's lots of opportunities that didn't exist before. So fun. So a couple of things we're going to do in person, in community. Can't wait to see you in Seattle and Spokane. We're going to do info sessions about these new programs. I mean, what's different in the standard program, but we're really going to be focusing on that small budget production initiative. So look for the dates. That's going to, I know we're kicking them off in April. I think we're going to do them all in April. And then we will also be doing one virtual. So something that's a little bit more interactive than tonight, because what we're hoping is we're going to put the guidelines and criteria up. You're going to read them, all 34 pages, and then come to the table with all kinds of questions. Julie, what else is going on? By the way, aren't I so much better when I have my notes?
You're wonderful all the time.
Oh,
I
yes.
know. It's true. It's true. So, as you mentioned, we're getting out in the community, and while that's going on behind the scenes, we have our lawyers doing the final touches, looking at everything, making sure our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed, so that we can get all of these documents up on the site for everyone to read, so that we can get a revised version of that legally binding agreement. So we know as soon as we do open this application window, we can just start approving and accepting projects. So that is the goal. That is absolutely the goal.
Our goal is to give away all that money that we've spent time raising over the last several, what feels like an eternity, but we're almost there.
We're almost there, which is the also the step that we continue to do, which is continue to fundraise and bring that $15 million in the door so we can get committed to projects.
We're committed to projects, and we know it's slow out there. We're hearing a lot about it. We are moments away from opening these application windows, and we have a bunch of money to commit this year, which is all about you and the projects that you want to do. Shane, I see you and all of your questions. Please come to, I would love to answer all the questions in the chat, but we see you, we're noting them, and we'll get to them for sure, especially when we're out in community. And I hope that if you live in Seattle and Spokane, we would absolutely love to see you. I'm going to not read the chat questions because it's so hard. All right. Thanks for being here. Sorry it was on a Wednesday, totally random. It kind of just fit into our schedule that way. And we will be back next month, the last Thursday, which is our normal. Although before that, I'll see you in community. I think I'll see you all out there.
Mm-hmm. If you are not signed up for our newsletter or follow us on social, please do, because that's where we'll be spreading the word about these upcoming events.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make sure that everyone is aware of them. And if you're unable to make the in-person in either Seattle or Spokane, there will be a virtual option. So keep your eyes open for that. And we will answer all of your many amazing questions and take note of them here tonight so that we'll be prepared to answer them in person.
Yeah. And maybe you can stump us while we're out there. I don't know. I'm sure you're going to ask questions that we don't know the answer to, but that's the fun thing about having so many new programs. So, all right. Thanks for being here. We will see you soon, and we can't wait to share more about it.